What is up, gamers? I just wanted to ramble about Nirvana for the next however long. In set 11, we are getting a few new cards for Nirvana, and a lot of these cards are really good. They do a lot of things to fix all variants of Nirvana, and I think Java will end up being pretty solid now. But I'm here to talk about them and the implications of them with Mahar Nirvana. Mahar is my personal favorite unit in Overdress, and basically ever since Java became the main deck for Nirvana, I've always played Mahar and tried to make it work. The deck was never really good. You had to like cheese the opponent really hard, but it was a fun deck. And now with all this new support, they actually help Mahar a lot. Now they also help Java, and they also kind of help Bav. Now that I'm like 10 games deep with playing with the new stuff, Mahar feels a lot better. I still think Java is still better, but Mahar is still fun. We'll go over these new cards real quick. So the first thing is we got a new Trickstar. This Trickstar does a lot of things. Basically, it counts as a Trickstar. It also counts as a Prayer Dragon, and you can cross Overdress using this one card as both a Trickstar and one Prayer Dragon, making it to where you can cross Overdress using one card now. Whenever the outer dress of it would be bound or sent to deck, all the original dress will get sent to drop zone, making it not nearly as punishing to go against any form of bind or sending back to deck effects. But the main thing I was excited about with this card is the defensive effect on it, where you can rip it out of the original dress as a 10k shield. So this deck is built around being able to utilize that effect pretty consistently. And also, this Trickstar being a Prayer Dragon as well allows it to be tutored for through other means that allow you to search for Prayer Dragons or call Prayer Dragons from drop zone, like through Java effect. And yeah, now we have so much easy access to Trickstar, and we are really consistent on being able to find them and being able to use them each and every time. And then the other new card I wanted to talk about is ours Vairina. Ours is very weird, and we only really care about one effect on this card, which is the first effect that whenever you discard it from hand during your turn, you can search for a talisman, which is any Trickstar or Varina, and send it to drop zone. We mainly just care about abusing the discard effect on this, because one of the main issues with Vairina and Nirvana in the past has been being able to find all the cards you're actually wanting and needing in order to play. So like in Java, if you don't see Straw Varina, the deck's kind of bad. If you don't see Mirrors Vairina, the deck is kind of bad. And the only like direct ways we could search it were through top 7 checks through Grail Mirror and Ultru, which isn't really helpful. But because the deck has so much access to its drop zone, being able to discard any Vairina from our deck is very impactful, and you can very easily set up very strong boards with this card now. The other thing to note is that Trickstar is a talisman as well, so you are able to mill Trickstars as well, which was also another weird consistency issue the deck would sometimes have, where you'd only find one Trickstar and then never be able to double Overdress. So between these two new cards, there is a lot going on for the deck now, and it ups the consistency by a mile. Because we're playing Mahar, it was naturally kind of hard to fit Prayer Dragons in the deck. Less Prayer Dragons means we have less access to cross Overdress cards, because we would normally want to play Mirrors in a Mahar deck, since that's our main way of countercharge. So the new Trickstar being able to be a 1-card cross Overdress now means it's a lot easier to cross Overdress into a lot of cards. So now with ours, we just need Trickstar, and we have so many ways to find Trickstar and revive Trickstar that now it's become a non-issue to cross Overdress in this deck. So now with these in mind, the rest of our Vairinas that we are playing 2 Esperdea, 1 Vils, 1 Mirrors, and 3 Arcs. So a lot to take in with this. Because we are able to directly search for these Vairinas now, we can play less of them. We just need to mill 1, and then we are good for the rest of the game. So Arcs is our best early game beater, and our best use of Counterblast by being able to basically refund itself and plus you cards in the process. If you end up going first, combined with the new Trickstar, it becomes real easy to guard early turns, because then you can have the Trickstar underneath be a 10k shield and then intercept Arcs away to be a 5k shield, and you also drew cards in the process. And then because we are playing Mahar, we are playing Esperdea. This is the main reason to play Mahar. And Esperdea gets a lot better now with ours Vairina and with the new Trickstar, because ours keep sending Trickstars and Vairinas into your drop zone, so you're able to consistently have a lot of things you could put under Esperidaea and not be stuck sometimes where you just don't find enough Vairinas to make Esperidaea threatening enough. So pretty consistently, I'm getting like 10 cards under Esperidaea the moment I hit Mahar now, which is crazy. Before, it was like 4 a lot of the time. The other cool thing is whenever you do overdress into Esperidaea, you get all of your Trickstars and drop back under it, meaning that you essentially get 40k free shield you can use every single turn. Now, the big thing to note is if Esperidaea gets retired, you lose all of that. So against decks with very easy removal, makes it harder for Esperidaea to keep all that extra shield. But for the most part, if you're against a deck like Magnolia or something that doesn't have easy ways to retire, this is crazy. And then lastly are 2 one-of Vairinas. So Mirrors is our best draw engine in the deck, but we are only staying on Java for 1 turn, so we only need the 1 Mirrors. Mirrors is very often the first thing I discard off an R's discard, and then whenever we hit turn 3, we have ways to add Vairinas from our drop to our hands, then we can add Mirrors. We'll have multiple Vairinas in drop zone very easily, and then Mirrors will be our restand target 90% of the time with Java, and then we draw 2 or refund Counterblast if we ended up spending a lot in the early game. But Mirrors gives you enough to deal with the very strong turn 3 or 4s. It doesn't always save you, but it does enough a lot of the time. And then the other one's Vils. Vils is weird. It used to be a second Mirrors, but I liked Vils a lot because Vils a lot of the time will act as a second copy of ours if you aren't seeing enough R's early game. And that's also just a resist unit that the opponent can't target. So it's a lot easier to keep your Trickstar under in order to be a 10k shield. Now, Vils naturally gets 10k shield when he's in the cross overdress state. Ruling I had to check. I asked a couple judges about it, and they all told me the same thing. But if you're in the cross overdress state and you just have Trickstar under Vils, and you guarded the Trickstar, you're no longer in the cross overdress state. But if you had, let's say, just a prayer dragon under it as well, then you are still in the cross overdress state because you have something under it. As long as you have anything under the cross overdress or overdress unit, they are still considered in the overdress state. So with Vils, you pretty actively want to not count this as 2. And what you can do instead is have it cross overdress with a prayer dragon. And you want to guard with the Trickstar for 10 and then intercept with the Vils for 15k. So you have 25k shield you can utilize through that. And then this one's technically not a Vairina, but in the case of this, we're also playing Formidal to find Esper and Mahar. You could technically cut Formidal for basically any other Regalis piece. There are a couple of the options with Formidal. Formidal all of the time is just a 5th copy of Mahar because we have so much access to Esper that we don't really care. So this Formidal could be a 3rd Esper. It could be a twin cast, which is a 10k shield and then a 20k shield since your Vanguard is base grade 4. Or it can be ladder, so you can keep your Trickstars in play whenever you put them under an Esperidaea or an Ars or something, right? I think any of those options are really good. I'm just playing Formidal for now just as a beginner list, but I think over time I'll probably switch to ladder. And now the other half of crossover dress, which are the prayer dragons. So naturally we have 4 of the Trickstar, which are prayer dragons now, which matters a lot for Aparajaya, which we're playing 3 of, which Aparajaya can tutor for any prayer dragon for a Soul Blast and a discard, which both of those costs now are like very good for us. We actively want to be discarding ours, so a discard cost is fine, and then Soul Blast, because spoiler alert, we're playing Cindy, we can Soul Blast the Cindy out before we revive with Java or Mahar. But now for Aparajaya, instead of only being able to tutor for our prayer dragons, we're now able to tutor for our Trickstars. So between Aparajaya, ours, and the ride line, we have so much access to Trickstar that we should pretty consistently have like 2 or 3 out of the deck by turn 3. Aparajaya is also just the best crossover dress target because it gives resist to the thing it crossover dresses over and then replaces itself. But another thing you can do is because you're actively not wanting to restand the R's in this deck, you can crossover dress this with R's, and then ours will put all the Trickstars in the original dress, and then you can guard with those on the next turn without much worry. Now, against Bavsagra, the most broken deck in the game, they're gonna blow up your front row, so it's not like the best in that matchup, and that's where you would want to play ladder most likely. But like in most matchups where they're targeting your thing, Aparjaya stops it. So like Blang the Mahar. But one other thing is the other Paradragon we play, which this can tutor for, is Argneus. In my initial list, I wasn't playing it, but then after trying it, this card is broken in here. So either whenever it's placed on rearguard or discard from your hand during your turn, if your Vanguard's Nirvana, you can NG Blast 3 and add a cross overdress unit from drop zone back to hand. And whenever you cross overdress over it, you can Soul Blast 1 and counter charge. So the main thing is that it is extremely easy to proc Argneus multiple times in a turn. Because something you can do is you can just discard it off Java to revive Argneus and Trickstar. And then with that, Argneus triggered twice. So you get to add 2 cross overdress units from your drop to your hand. So you can add Ours back to keep discarding over and over again. You can add back Mirrors on your turn 3 in order to have your double draw. Or if you play any other cross overdress units, you can add back those. The primary thing with it is that you are adding back R's with it. So a pretty consistent thing I've done is discard R's early game and then discard Argneus on turn 3 for Ride, and then add back R's, discard R's for Java effect, call back Argneus Trickstar, and then Argneus will add back R's or something else that we need. This is the only thing we're spending energy on in this deck, but we are spending it a lot with this card. It is a very good card in here. And with all of these, with the Ryu in our ride line, we have 9 different targets we can potentially hit off riding up to grade 3. And now we are able to actually add Trickstar off of it, making finding Trickstars even more consistent. And now for the non-Trickstars, Vairinas, Paradragons, we have 5 cards that aren't like the staples. So first up is 3 Cindy. You can probably bump this up to 4 if you want, because this card's insane. We're seeing what this card is doing in Bob Sagara, and this just does the exact same thing in here, because now we have so much access to our deck through ours. So now between Argneus and Cindy, we can basically tutor any Vairina we want from our deck. And it also keeps putting itself in the soul. So for Esperdea Soul Blast, for Aparjaya Soul Blast, we have so many ways to get soul in this deck that it's really just, I've not worried about it at all. The only times I worry about it is if I don't see Cindy. And then this is also where like Aparjaya or Argneus main phase Soul Blast come in, where if you just have Cindy in hand on your turn 3, you can use Cindy, put in the soul, add something back to hand, play Aparjaya, Soul Blast it out, and then call Argneus off it, add another thing to hand, and then you call Aparjaya, Soul Blast the Cindy out, and call Argneus. Argneus will add back R's to hand, and then you can discard R's for Java effect to revive Trickstar and another Paradragon, and then Cindy will also revive itself, and also R's will tutor for another thing. And then Cindy will be able to either re-grab that thing if you need it, or it can just be an 8k booster, because our turn 3 is pretty weak. If you don't cross overdress the R's, our strongest attacker is 20k that were standing once. So having an 8k booster behind Vanguard a lot of the time is pretty good on like making sure you do something on the turn. But yeah, it's felt good at 3. I used to want to put it at 4, and then I put Argneus in, and now 3's felt a lot better. And then lastly is 2 Amelia. So whenever I was playing Mahar just for fun, I tried to lean into the most broken thing that you can do with the deck, which was doing a double damage ping. How it works is that the turn you ride Mahar, you can use Mahar effect to deal a damage and call Trickstar from drop, and then you can call Amelia and use Amelia effect to superior ride Mahar. And then since that's a brand new Mahar, you can activate its effect again to Soul Blast the one you just rode over and deal another damage to the opponent. So for 3 counterblast, you're able to deal 2 damage to the opponent, which makes the deck not have to spend so many resources in order to get a good early game and try to like push damage super early on like a Java deck would. Instead, just through the damage ping from Mahar, either just 1, or if you have the Amelia play, you can do 2. Having access to that is pretty important in a lot of cases. And because you are able to get double Esper so easily now, it makes this type of play a lot more threatening. And then the rest of the deck is just normal stuff. For PGs, you should have the Festival Elementaria in here. I don't own it. I don't care to buy it. I'm playing this deck for fun. I'm never using it in like an actual tournament, so I don't really care. But if you have it, you technically should be playing it. Drag Vader, because restanding triple drive's broken. 3 front, 8 crit, 4 heal. Every other trigger lineup ever. But those are my very early thoughts of the new cards in Nirvana. I still want to test it out a lot, and I'll probably make a more in-depth video guide on it, something similar to my Magnolia video in the future once I have a lot more reps and all the theory is done with it. But very early on, this deck's been really fun. Your grade 3 turn feels like a Yu-Gi-Oh turn, or like an Elder Glimmer turn sometimes, where you're just kind of going through the motions, and you're having to like search through your deck multiple times because you keep re-adding R's to hand, discarding more Vairinas, and it works out really well that way. But yeah, anyways, that's it. Bye!